What's happening, everyone, and welcome to the club. Now, before we get into this clip, I need to let you know that we have partnered with the wonderful people of Super 6. Super 6 is a fantastic app, and guess what? It will not cost you a penny. Simply download the Super 6 app, put in 6 scores, and if you get them all correct, you will win £250,000. It will not cost you a single penny to play. Aside from that, we have our own league. The code is Club S6, and me, Adam and Buvey, we all play against one another, and you can join that league totally for free. And if you win it, you will get £100 to spend at classic football shirts. The link's in the description below. I hope you enjoy this clip. In a bit, yo. You're watching a clip from the Club podcast.
Make sure you follow it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review.
So here you go. Here's a lovely clip from our podcast. We have got to react to an exhilarating final day of relegation Premier League football. Leeds are down, Leicester are down, Everton are staying up.
It was squeaky bum time, wasn't it? I think that's how you describe it for Everton. But it shouldn't be this way for Everton. It felt a little bit hollow that they're celebrating this, and obviously for a massive football club like Everton, I know the fans were loving it for the right reasons, but it felt a little bit hollow.
Do you know what? Do you think that this should be seen as a time for celebration, the way that Everton fans are at the moment, or do you think this should be seen as a time for concern? Because if you cast your minds back about 12 months, Frank Lampard on the pitch, the fans on the pitch, they were celebrating. 12 months later, Daesh, hands in the air, aloft, showing the signs of celebration. They survived the game. Ultimately, if you are constantly fighting relegation will catch you, won't it?
And that has to come down to the ownership structure there. There's a lot of issues going on. We know the fans are protesting, the owners there. Look, the fans are ultimately the lifeblood of any club, and they will be celebrating with, genuine optimism and heart, but they are also well aware of the issues at Everton. And I think most fan bases genuinely reflect the correct, the opinion. They're not going to be daft about it. And I think Everton fans know that, this board, these owners have kind of been leading the proper path. And yes, they've spent a lot of money, but they haven't spent it correctly. And if you're constantly fighting against relegation every season, like Rory said, if you've got to question what's going on.
Well, there's literally zero progression, is there? In fact, they've probably gone backwards because it was an easier season to stay up this year.
Yeah, could we argue there is, if you're being super optimistic, the stadium's on its way. For right or for wrong, that is a kind of interesting aspect for Everton's kind of progression into a kind of modern football club
next season.
Sean Dyche is that kind of fit. He'll make them aggressive, hard to beat if he's given the right tools. If he has a couple of signings, I think if Dominic Calvert-Lewin stays fit, the midfield, Doucouré's in there. He's a good midfielder for me. Onana, if he stays, there are small causes for concern. There are seeds of optimism at Everton.
I think there are some good players, and you mentioned a few of them there. But I think Daesh has got away with it, Booth.
Do you think? Yeah.
I quite like Daesh. I quite rate Daesh. But yeah, I think he's massively got away with it. I think they were incredibly lucky. I don't think they did very well to save themselves. I think they were saved by the incompetence of Leicester and Leeds. I don't think, Everton didn't appoint Daesh and end up with 43 points. They appointed Daesh, didn't really pick up many points and managed to survive. There's a huge difference. Being safe and saving yourself are very different. And they're safe. And that was the objective, and fair play, they've managed to do it. But Lampard did that last year. Lampard didn't save Everton. Everton was safe. But the same problems turned up in August, and by January they were in a state of disarray.
Yeah. I think you're bang on. Should we talk about Leicester very quickly? It's a sad state of affairs.
A team that in recent memory have won the Premier League, won an FA Cup. I know we've seen Wigan go down having won the FA Cup, but this was a team that you felt their recruitment was always pretty good.
Their training ground was incredible. The investment in the
they're
club.
A team that were hugely impacted by COVID because of what the business that their owners are in, King Power and all that. They rely on duty free and travel and things like that. So they had issues in terms of being able to spend money. But you still look at the quality in the squad. I know the likes of Johnny Evans was missing for a lot of season, and he's a big part of their defence. But you look at the players that they had at their disposal.
They're one of the best teams who have ever gone down.
Yeah. When you look at Tielemans,
it reminds me of the West Ham side in the early 2000s that went down with Joe Cole and all that.
Yeah, they're like that. That team was incredible. That team though went down with a lot of points.
Is it the best team to go down since then?
It's the best team to go down since then. That team was exceptionally good. That team was, Trevor Sinclair and Joe Cole, and was Carrick part of that. It was a really good team. this isn't quite as good as that team. Like, 'cause that's a
The
team of
Leeds side,
superstars.
in 2004 was a decent
Yeah,
side.
that was sort of Smith and that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was, again, it was good, and it was off the back of, European pedigree. But no, I think this team, when you think about players, like, I'd say 3 or 4 members of this squad could easily be playing for Champions League clubs.
So James Maddison, Tielemans.
Like James Maddison and Tielemans.
Pereira's a good fullback on his day. I know he's had injury problems.
Like James Maddison could definitely play in the Champions League this season. Like, he would have been playing in the Champions League this season. I think Tielemans, at times when Arsenal fans were talking about their lack of depth in central midfield, they were looking at Tielemans. They saw Tielemans as the option. And you suddenly go, hang on a minute, if Arsenal wanted them and Arsenal fans wanted Tielemans when they were potentially going to win the league, Maddison is being sought by many clubs, including a side like Newcastle, who are in the Champions League.
Man City even has been in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Exactly.
1,000,000%.
And you think there are some
Football's a weird sport.
really good players.
The one for me that I look at it from a macro perspective, I'm not a Leicester City fan. If anyone's listening that might disagree, fair enough. I know Schmeichel was past his prime. But when you get rid of Schmeichel and you replace him with Danny Ward, now whether that's an ownership issue, whether that's Brendan Rodgers making a tactical indecision with backing Danny Ward, for example, they started the season as soft as anything. They need a keeper. Look at Pickford against for Everton. Unbelievable in the final days. Kept them up twice.
2 years
He
in
did
a
it
row.
last year.
2 years in a row.
England international. Schmeichel's left. All right, he wanted to leave for personal reasons. I think he wants to travel, live in a different country.
He jumped ship though, didn't he? Because it happened all very quickly.
But I think he'd been wanting to leave for a couple of years.
There were a couple of players that left, not necessarily under a cloud, but just weirdly. Schmeichel was one. There was a couple of others. When you're just like, do you know, like, what conversation has happened for this to be the immediate out?
And Wout Fez has come in. I just think
terrible.
soft at the back.
I think of his performance at Anfield.
Yeah.
If he didn't score them 2 own goals, they're up.
Yeah. Like, I think Brendan Rodgers needs to hold hang his head in shame, really. I think Brendan Rodgers is definitely the epicenter of where it went
They've
wrong.
sacked him a bit earlier.
Yeah,
it feels
they should have
like,
definitely
innit?
sacked him
Then
earlier.
sure you don't bring in Dean Smith, for God's sake. Bring in some crazy European manager.
Bruv, he
Dean
won
Smith
some of the games.
No.
He wasn't the issue.
He is the issue.
No,
Yes,
he's not
he
the
is.
issue.
No, he's not the issue, but
Rodgers.
he is a massive issue.
Look,
He's a close second. If you replace Rodgers with Dean Smith, you deserve to be relegated. It's as simple as that. He's already been relegated with
Dean
Norwich.
Smith's not that bad.
He's a bad man. He's not a Premier League manager. He's not.
Right,
He's
right.
not.
He's the manager that can get you up from the Championship and then
can't
bring you
give
back
me-
down again.
I don't think you can give me a Championship club that would hire him next season.
Oh, yeah, they will.
No, not a serious
I wouldn't be
one.
surprised if he stays at Leicester and gets him back up.
No. He got sacked from Norwich for not being able to do that with a Norwich side, a yo-yo club anyway.
He was
and
quite
wasn't able to
popular
do
at
it.
Villa, though, wasn't he? When Villa fans...
He's a Villa fan, though.
But
Scrape,
would have helped him.
Scrape by. They say he played terrible football there. So
No. He was loved for him and Grealish had something going on.
maybe I'm wrong then. But
So look, ultimately though, Leicester have gone down. I think they persevered with Rodgers for way too long. Rodgers was being sort of sulky and weird and not particularly keen on his job at times. I thought he wanted to be sacked. And I think they've got a real problem now, because when you think of the 3 sides that go down, Leicester are the side that are going to lose their marquee players. Like, I don't really think many players...
I think they'll have to.
Think about
because of
Leeds.
the wages and stuff.
The vultures aren't circling for Leeds players.
Yeah, no one wants Luke Ayling.
Bamford.
No one wants
Nonto,
Bailing.
maybe.
Bamford, God.
Nonto.
Someone signs Bamford.
Nonto, Rodrigo.
No!
They do.
Buvey, Bamford's
Someone
not
in the
Premier League
Championship
player.
side.
No, he said Premier League.
He's a bottom half.
He's a Bamford's a Championship striker.
You don't
if
think
I've
even
ever
a
seen one.
Bournemouth coming
No.
for Bamford?
No.
No. But Bamford's, if you boil it down, the reason they're going down is Bamford. If you boil
He's
it
come
down.
back from injuries and stuff like
Mate,
that.
he missed the
They
penalty.
concede a lot of goals.
He
bro.
missed the penalty
They're
to
going
go
down
to.
to
He
the
missed
defender
the
football,
penalty
mate.
in their penultimate game of the season.
Yeah, he's a bottler. I'm not saying he's an elite
No,
level
no.
striker, bro. I'm saying, could he play for the 15th best club in the Premier
No,
League next
he
season?
can't play in the Premier League.
He's not a Premier League player.
Bamford is not a Premier
He's
League
a
player.
Premier League
If he comes to the Premier
He's
League, that
nowhere
team goes
near
down.
a Premier League
For me.
player.
That team goes down.
When they first came up, he
Buvey,
scored
this is
15
so
odd goals.
wild. He's not a Premier
He had a
League
very
player.
good season when he
Let's
first
say he
came up.
goes Luton. Luton's still going down.
No.
Of course.
It's a good segue. We have to talk about Luton, by the way. We have to talk
No, but you can't just drop that Bamford.
And we have to talk about
I can. I think he's a decent striker.
The reason that they're going down is
That
because of a
injury issues,
miss
bro.
that happened in the last minute against Leicester.
Yeah.
When he missed a
Has he
complete
bottled
open goal.
moments? Has he had a terrible season?
Harder to score. And then harder to score than
Yeah,
miss.
is he a bottler? Potentially, yeah. Is he had a bad season? Is it a terrible
I mean, he's
season?
just not a- he's just
he had
not a
injuries
Premier
last
League
season.
player.
When will Leeds be back? And Leicester be back?
17 years.
I weirdly think Leeds will get promoted quicker. I think they'll do a Burnley and be a bit more humble with it. And just, I think Leicester, it will shock them to their core being in the Championship.
And they're going to lose too many players.
Yeah, I think Leicester will, like if Everton went down, it would have been a shock to the system.
You think?
I think Leicester are in this. I think Leicester, like you looked at Leicester's players there, huddled around watching the club at the end of the game, trying to see if Bournemouth had scored. And it's kind of like, lads, I don't even know why you're watching that at this point. Like it's done, boys. Like,
deserves to be relegated.
And he's kind of, they still had that weird, we're staying up vibe about him.
Yeah.
And when the game had finished, it's a sad state of affairs, but
You have to think about it. This is how weird the English football pyramid
they've got
is.
good owners though, Leicester.
Yeah, they
and
do.
if the owners do have the funds there, they will make them available.
This is how weird the English football pyramid is. That in 2016, when Leicester City were winning the Premier League title, Luton were in League One, League Two, and now Luton Town are above Leicester City in the English football pyramid. Is it a good thing for English football or a bad thing? It's a hard thing to quantify. I think it's a really good thing that Luton are in the Premier League.